I don't know why, but people always assume that my Instagram DMs are full. They are stacked. And I always say, no, no, they're not. This Instagram DM, though, I was very happy to receive. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Slasher Talk podcast. I hope everybody is doing well. The last time we spoke, I was in prep to fly over to the UK to shoot my scenes for Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 3. What an experience! I cannot wait to tell you guys all about it. The plan was to come back from that trip and the first podcast episode, be telling you all about my experience, all the things that I can tell because, spoilers and Scott doesn't want us to share everything. I don't want to spoil everything either. But plans change. I got an Instagram message this week from somebody that I kind of like shot my shot with, back right after South by Southwest. And I honestly did not think this was ever gonna be a thing. I just kinda shot my shot, and I was okay with, not getting a response back or, um, maybe the schedules, whatever, just didn't work. But I messaged Damian McCarthy, director of Caveat, Oddity, and Hokum, one of my favorite working directors in horror right now, and I messaged him saying, "Hey, congratulations on Hokum. What a great film. I loved it. If you ever want, there is always a spot for you on my podcast. Would love to have you on." And wouldn't you know it, he messaged me back. This week I got a message saying, "Hey, I'm free. Do you want to do a podcast?" And I was like, hell yes, brother. You don't turn Damian McCarthy down. So the plan was to tell you all about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 3 and my experience, but plans change. I'm going to save that. We're going to talk about that maybe next week. And it gives me more of an idea. It gives me more of a time to kind of plan what I can and can't talk about anyway. So if you're like me and you're a fan of Damian McCarthy, his movies, Caveat, Oddity, Hokum, we don't dive into a bunch of spoilers in this conversation. I know Hokum has been out for a little bit, but if you haven't seen it, possibly some spoilers. I don't necessarily remember because I've seen the movie twice now, so like I have a hard time remembering that people haven't seen this movie yet. We don't dive into a bunch of plot points or I don't think massive spoilers. I don't know. I'm still coming down from the high of talking to him, but just possible spoiler warning. I talked to him for about an hour. He gave me an hour. An hour. Time flies when you just such a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. This is my first interview, my first guest on the podcast. I don't know if I made a fool of myself. I have no clue. But give me your feedback. Let me know if you want to see more of this kind of stuff on the podcast as well, because it's a completely different format. I understand. Damien, I know I said it over and over and over in our conversation, but thank you again so much for coming on the podcast, giving me your time. I know you're a busy fella, especially after the press run for Hokum. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with the one and only Damian McCarthy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Slasher Talk podcast. This episode is very special. It's our first guest on the podcast, and I don't really know where I go from here. It might be our peak episode, so we'll see. So it is what it is. Because there's always been a specific kind of horror and scary movie that really just gets under my skin with atmosphere and just like sense of dread. And this director continues to almost effortlessly, it seems, just like pump out movies that just stick with me. His movies, Caveat, Oddity, and the recently released Hokum. I am honored to welcome Damian McCarthy onto the podcast. Damian, how are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. When I shot my shot after South by Southwest. I was like, "There ain't no shot in hell." But then you messaged me the other day, and I was like, "Okay, lock in, because
Well,
Damian McCarthy's coming on the podcast."
well, I'm a fan of I'm a fan of your stuff. I try to avoid anything to do with my own movies. I think that the praise for the films can some in a weird way be as damaging as a lot of negativity with with the films. So I think I've watched everything else you're doing, but I think if you're talking about my movies, I've avoided. So for all I know, you think the stuff sucks. But I guess if you're having me on,
You
uh,
know, dude, I
yeah,
feel like specifically when, like, Oddity came out, because Oddity was, probably, like, I believe it was, like, top 2 horror movies for me when in 2024. I watched that in this room in the pitch black dark. I watched it through a screener, and, I was like, just and we'll get into how you build your horror movies and stuff, but just, like, how you do stuff, it just I remember just being like, "Holy shit," and, like, nothing really topped that for me, so,
oh,
no.
great,
Huge fan, you could say.
excellent, great.
So, um, one thing I love to do, I did an episode, going kinda through, because people always ask me, like, "Hey, like, how did you get into the genre? What movies really sparked your love?" And just, like, how did I think all horror mo all horror movie fans have, like, a horror origin story, and I know
Mm.
that you have a very unique upbringing with, like, your childhood and all that, and, I would love to hear more about that, and, especially for people that don't know. How did you kinda get into the horror genre? What movies really stuck with you, and, like, how did you end up being a director?
Yeah, my dad was so my parents owned a VHS shop when I was growing up. So it was like in the 80s and early 90s. And my dad was a huge horror fan. Just used to love horror, science fiction. So it's always that thing. It's like when you're small, an older brother or your parents and uncles, somebody will recommend all this stuff to you, and it's just suddenly it's so terrifying to watch it, but it becomes a little bit like a drug. You keep going back for you keep going back for more of it. So yeah, my parents had this VHS shop, so it was just spending a lot of time there after school. You finish school, you walk down, wait for your mom to finish work, and you just be. I was always in the horror section where you'd find me, just reading that reading the backs of boxes, staring at the artwork on the cover. Then new movies would come in, so it's time to swap out all the posters. So I would take all the posters home and you know cover my bedroom wall with it. So you'd like very random stuff, killer clowns from outer space to,
Good one.
child's play to, you know, whatever, it, the sleepwalkers, and just all this was just a constantly, my bedroom wall was just continuously changing, whatever I had. And, um, I know by the time that shop closed, I had a massive movie poster collection, but unfortunately, I'm sure some of them would be pretty cool to still have now. A few of those classic retro posters,
Oh,
but
yeah,
they're
100%.
all gone. That was it. That was really just the start of it. I think, like anybody that just really loves film in general, it just starts when you're a child, and just kind of evolves into as you're through your teenage years and into your 20s. And I was very really into sports, or I love music. Thank God I've absolutely no musical talent at all. like I can just be a fan. Whereas with filmmaking, I was like, I'm such a fan of it that it seemed to kind of spill over into like I've got to have something to do with making movies. Um, Now, I mean, I left school when I was 15 and just started work a lot. It's kind of in Ireland, it would happen a lot that you just go in, get a trade, plumber, electrician, carpenter, whatever. And so I left school when I was 15. And again, this is, this is like, 30 years ago, where like there's no digital. The only people that are really making movies that have no contacts to the industry would have been the classic stories like Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, guys kind of going out and making it happen with film stock. And I worked away till I was like 21 or 22, and it just got to a point where it's like I've just got to have something to do with filmmaking. It just almost became that frustration. So I went back to St. John's College here in Cork in the southwest of Ireland, and just yeah, did 3 years there, film and TV production. Made a lot of short films on 16 mil, 8 mil, which is a really good way to kind of learn how to make movies because you've only got so many feet of film, and it makes you a little bit more efficient on set.
Yeah.
Because I can only do one or two takes. I've got to move on. Whereas with digital, you can just roll and roll and roll if your time allows. Um, and then it was I left. I guess I was done with film school when I was about 25. So then from 25 to 35, it was just out in the wilderness. I went back to work. Again, went back to work as an electrician, and but this was just something just trying to figure out how do I get, again, how do I get in? And at this stage, then digital was here, and people were making movies with digital and using the internet to kind of get their stuff out there. I mean, it sounds like a million years ago now. It sounds so it sounds so
Yeah.
old uh, when I talk about it, but I mean, it's so much change in such a short space of time in terms of technology. So for those 10 years between 25 and 35, it was just a lot of trying to get people to read scripts, like bad scripts that I'd written. Um, Spending a lot of time focusing on one feature film. Okay, if I can get this feature made, this be thing. A lot of cold approaching production companies and stuff like this. Dear sir, madam, will you read my script? And I mean, they can't. It's very difficult. Because they could be working on a similar project, or and I'm getting my first taste of that now. With so many people reaching out to me over the last few years, and it's like I kind of see that everybody's trying to get their own project going. So I was making short films, and I felt at least I knew how to structure a short film and get it into a film festival, and it's very exciting. Anything that I made in college never worked. So again, it felt like maybe I'm not very good at this, and maybe I should just almost just stay like a big fan of it. But I made this very small. It was almost like a kind of a last attempt to see if I could make something. It was this very very small, with my best friend at home and a cameraman. This thing called "He Dies at the End" in 2008, and it's a 4.5 minute black and white short film. And we did it. I thought, okay, there's something in this that's kind of funny, and it's just an exercise in comedy and tension, comedy and horror, and sent it out, and it just seemed to be in film festivals everywhere. So I was like, holy shit, this is my break now. Now it's happening.
One.
It's all about to happen. Hollywood's going to come knocking now. And and while it was great to watch it with a crowd and to kind of go, okay, I can kind of see that what I would find scary, or where I'd place the camera, or how I would build tension, it's actually working with people. It's clearly working on an audience. So I felt like that gave me a lot of confidence, but it just didn't open any doors. And it just continued like that. Then for 10 years, I made another 6 or 7 short films. They all played at film festivals. They all won awards. But again, nothing was paying the bills. And if I had a script, I could maybe get one or two people to read it, at production companies or something. But again, it never went anywhere. They were like, this thing doesn't really have any structure. I can see why they passed on it now. So at 35, it was like, okay, it's just not happening unless I just kind of will it into existence. And that's where we finally made Caveat with a tiny budget. I teamed up with a producer in London who was looking to get into the industry as well. And he'd seen my short films at festivals and just said, like, would you ever make a feature film? I said, yeah, I've been trying to get people to read scripts for 10 years. So it was a case of I direct it, he'd produce it, yeah, and away we go. And then it was just it happens much quicker once you get something. Caveat was a I'll never make a film as hard as Caveat. I mean, it was so difficult. I mean, it kind of I wish I'd had a documentary crew following me around, because if it can go, I mean, anything that could go wrong, it just went wrong. It was like uphill all the way, and that's not uncommon, because making that first feature film is people have no idea how difficult it's going to be. And I try to tell people, I never tell people don't do it. I never tell people like it's impossible to get into, because I mean, if I can make films for a living, anybody can. That's
Yeah.
just a fact.
Yep.
But you just need to push through a little bit. So once we had Caveat finished and I edited it and I sound designed it after work and weekends, then the pandemic happened, so we couldn't even show it anywhere because all the film festivals closed down. So, um, but very slowly the film started to kind of find a little bit of an audience, and then I had Oddity written, so it was much easier to get Oddity made for sure, because it was like, okay, I liked Caveat. It was kind of an odd, weird horror movie. What else would you do? And I was like, I would do this. I got this thing about a wooden man, and I don't know how to pitch movies, but I go, just read it, and if you
Yeah.
keep turning the page, then we'll talk. And just, yeah, just luckily, just with Shudder, with their support. It got me my agents then at UTA. Yeah, not that he was just a much smoother thing. And again, it wasn't a big movie, but it was one of those things where I had that look where all the right people saw it. You know, all the kind of the
Yep.
people that will say have the you know, the people that have the door locked, they'll open the door and kind of go, okay, what else are you making? Or even the likes of, you know, Adam, like Adam Scott saw Oddity and he was like, okay, that's kind of an interesting film and he liked it and he was curious what I was doing next. So, um, yeah, it's like that thing. And I try to tell students if you can if you can get through that first 10 years of just constant rejection and nobody's interested and nobody wants to help you. And if you can, I think that's the only thing that makes a difference to go, okay, like and thank them for their time because you'd be amazed how many times, like, if I've given a script to somebody to read or asked for something, and they'll say not interested or whatever, can't even read it, but like, oh, you know, thanks for taking a look at it, or thanks for even
Yeah.
considering it. The, more often than not, people will reply to go, okay, well, maybe I will take a look at it. Whereas, like, if you just went kind of, oh, fuck you so, and just like, you know, and just, you know, didn't even thank them for reading their time, you're definitely closing the door there yourself. But I mean, again, that's just kind of down to manners, I think, if somebody takes the time. So that's it. That's the whole
Nice.
long
Yeah. No,
spiel about
it
that's the origin story. I don't know how interesting it
nice.
is, but
I love that. I love that.
that's certainly it.
It's interesting because I live right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and Nashville, Tennessee is, like, known as, like, the 10-year city. Like, you come here to be a musician, and they're like, "You gotta put in your 10 years." So,
Oh
like,
wow. Okay.
it's I don't know, like, I don't know, like, the specifics there. Obviously, people write songs and they go viral or hits or
Yeah,
whatever,
of
like, just interest so
course.
it's interesting to hear that you kinda had that 10-year experience in filmmaking as well. That's super sick. So, actually, you bringing up Caveat, Oddity, and Shudder kind of
Mhm.
rolls right into my next question. With Hokum, obviously, Caveat and Oddity found a home on Shudder, and I love Shudder. I think they have great catalogs, great original films. But Neon decided to get involved with Hokum. What
Mhm.
was the process? Was the process making the film? Did they come in on, like, the back end where they had already seen the film, and then you were just worked with their fantastic marketing team because
Mhm.
their marketing is insane. What
Yeah.
was that like working with a new company?
Well, I was huge fans of Shudder. So I mean, I've nothing in Sam Zimmerman, who was at Shudder at the time. I mean, I
I
just
love Sam so much. He's
you know, Sam's amazing. Sam is the best. Yes, he came to the New York premiere as well. I love Sam. He's yeah, he's a horror encyclopedia and just a lovely guy. Just you
insane
know,
knowledge. Yeah.
um, uh, I think with with I guess how do we do it? So with Holcomb, it was the film started with Spooky Pictures, which would be Stephen Schneider, Andrew Childs, and Roy Lee. They've got such a a history of horror filmmaking that they brought in Image Nation. So it was very much, I guess you essentially it's not really an independent film, but because it's Image Nation Abu Dhabi and it's you know, Roy Lee. Um, but it was very much just making the film ourselves, you know, through their financing. And then when we were in the edit, and I guess the film was not, I guess it was close to being finished, but it was certainly underway. That's when Neon joined us. That I was just so excited about Neon coming in, just because again, like all the things you're saying there, their marketing
Yeah.
is incredible. So once they came on board, they finished the film with us, gave us some guidance on, you know, I'm always wide open to, you know, to notes and to kind of sometimes late in the process too. You're watching the film going, I don't even see a film anymore. I'm just seeing ones and zeros. You know, it's just like looking at the Matrix. It's like, is there something here? Um, and so I mean, for that they were quite good. And once we locked the film, then they were, you know, they were already on board at that stage then with us. So it was yeah, it was just about getting the film out there. And I've really loved the process of working just because you have these meetings, like marketing meetings, where okay, we're going to go through uh, some artwork tomorrow night and posters, and you know, they'd show me stuff, and I'm going, they're like, you know, which one of these do you like? And I'm like, I like all of them.
I
Like,
like
I mean, yeah, it's like things like that beautiful kaleidoscopic image of Adam's kind of upside down and all the faces fill out. Or then they had one that I really loved, which was like just the little figurines, the little cherubs screaming with Paul McDonald's design. I was like, going, can we? I hope we're going to use all of this because there's nothing that I'd really rule out. So, um, yeah, they were great. I have no notes for them. They were
I love
fantastic to work with.
I love that. I work with them on, like, a couple campaigns here and there, and, like, they're all fantastic.
Yeah.
So all of your films have, like, this sense of, like, the supernatural and, like, folk elements. Was that something that were you a big fan of, like, folk growing up, or did you have any sort of, like, supernatural experiences, yourself?
Um, I haven't. It's like people have asked me about supernatural things, and they're very. Sometimes they they may not have happened. They could just be these. Could just be something from a dream or something. There's been a couple of odd little things. I remember where we lived in it was called Ballylicky in West Cork, and it's a rural area. At night time, there's no street lights. There's nothing there. It's dark. And I do remember right across the fields from us one night going to the window and looking out and you could see this very very pale figure just crossing the hill across the way. But that may have been maybe going to bed after watching Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and the Banshee was still in my mind. But it's still a memory. Like I can remember seeing that, whatever that ghostly figure was walking out there. Anything else isn't too cinematic. I was in a hotel once. There was a cup on the table, and the cup just moved right across the table on its own. And just watched it go, and it's like, again,
Creepy.
it's creepy, but put it in, and you're kind of watching, going like, "What the fuck? What's going on?" But like, put it in a movie, it's not all that cinematic, or it's not all that scary. But if you know, if it happens at night in front of you, you're going like, "That's deeply
That's not
strange and
supposed to happen.
unsettling."
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Sorry. Sorry, Joseph. What was the other part? You were saying you
Oh,
have
just, like,
supernatural experience myself.
very, very just, like, everything kinda gives, like, this, like, folk
Oh yes.
story.
Yeah.
Were you told a bunch of folk stories, like, as a kid? Was that something that you were just, like that you just gravitated towards, the older you've gotten, or, like, where does that come from?
It there would have been an element of that, yeah, growing up, like being told old folk stories and Irish, you know,
Yeah.
myths and legends that you learn in school. I think just as a writer, what I always liked about witches and folklore, there was always this kind of, um, it was always very vague in terms of how does it work, and what exactly do they want, especially with witches. It's like, you know, like what exactly is their motive? And it's almost like the witch has all the information, but the people surrounding them don't. Or even if you look at a film like The Wicker Man, they say that they have to burn this, an outsider or whatever it is every, I can't remember every couple of years they have to make this sacrifice, and it doesn't really go into any great detail of, like, there's animals inside this structure with him, and it's like, that there's so much secrecy surrounding this piece of folklore on the island in the Wicker Man, just for example. And it's like I always found that very creepy. It's like this guy's such an outsider. He has no idea how all that works. So I think I tried to do that from the audience's point of view. It's like the audience is a little bit of the outsider, and they don't know how any of this works. And it's something I guess I explored a little bit with oddity, with like how
Yeah.
does this wooden man come to life? And when Caroline Menton's character finds all these objects inside his head at one stage, it's like a little piece of hair, and there's a vial of blood and a tooth. It's like, well, uh, clearly, Carolyn Bracken's character has been up to something for the last week. She's been doing something at home with this wooden man, some kind of,
Whatever work, yeah.
incantations, or some kind of, ritual or something to activate this thing. But we never, we don't get to ever see any of that. And I think that's kind of good folklore to me. That's kind of like that the kind of vagueness of it, or you're just given a little glimpse of it, but nothing more, and then your imagination gets activated.
Which I which I think is always a great thing for horror. Like, horror audiences are split, on just about everything. It can be so subjective horror, but, like, some people love to be shown everything, and some
Yeah.
people like, just give me a taste. Like, let my imagination just run. And that's yes, I think I remember that scene from Oddity when she discovers all the things, and my brain was just like, "Oh, man,"
Mm,
like, just like, where does she get all these things from? And, like, all what's the process? But then, like, how the movie just goes, you're don't spoon feed me everything. Like, let
yeah.
me kinda, like, chill out. So, no, I think
Mhm,
that's great. Speaking of split horror movie fan bases,
mhm,
um, kinda jumping back into, um, Hokum, I have a couple questions for you on that. Um, Hokum really walks the line of being, like, extremely bleak, but you
mhm.
also have, like, a lot of, like, great fun moments throughout, and you've, like, spoken about how, like, specifically, like, the character Jerry, like, introduces, like, this, like, feeling of hope, and you kinda walk out of the movie going, "Okay, like, you're not so bleak." Like, I would
Yeah.
watch that a second time. Is that there's one side of horror fans that just love to feel, like, just beaten down and bleak, and it's not horror unless you just have that feeling. And then there's people that just love that feeling of hope. Like, what is what is your preference when it comes to horror? Like, do you like that bleakness, or do you write
Mm.
what you like and you love that feeling of hope?
I I think hope is nice in a horror movie. It's a very weird thing. It's such a I think the greatest closing shot of a horror film ever is Evil Dead 2. So, like, Ash is up on top of that mound, and everybody's praising him as the guy who's gonna save everybody. And he's just like shaking his head saying, no, the camera's pulling back. It's incredible. And it's like, but if you dig into it, it's like, it's funny because this guy's just been through all of this, and now he's traveled back in time. He's got to defend this castle. It's like, it's such a brilliant ending because because it's quite bleak for him because because it's still going, but there's something very
Yeah.
funny about it. It's very exciting. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole there's a whole lot of emotions. Like when you're watching that movie, it's like, how exactly should I feel? The first time I saw it, I was head like blown open, going, "This is amazing." So that's the kind of thing I think I'd always be trying to chase. That feeling of like what's going to happen next. Whereas I don't know if it took something like that movie, he just got killed at the end, or whatever it would be. It's like, all right, am I really going to come back to this? I guess I would always be trying to. I do like films that that have that have a happy ending, or at least they kind of hint that everything is going to be okay, or that at least justice will be served somewhat. Even if you think of like Odyssey, it ends with
I
him.
was getting ready to say that people always said, "Ah, the ending just didn't hit for me." Like, dude, I thought the
Mm,
ending of Oddity was perfect because, he rings the bell and you just kinda get the sense of, like, is that folk story true? And that
yeah,
last shot of that bellman just standing there, it's like, you don't need to see anything else. You just let your mind. Yeah.
yeah, and it's funny because then I can kind of, but see, I can understand then a horror fan watching going like, "What?" Like I need to see the bellboy like rip him apart, and
Yeah.
I need to see him like getting you know dragged off. And I was going, but there's nothing I can really show that's going to be as fun as what you could imagine. It's like it's just
Yep.
just and again that comes back to pretty much that short film He Dies at the End. That ends in a very very similar way. Um, and I just think there's something nice about that. And when I've watched Oddity with a crowd, I find there's a lot of laughter at the end when they watch that. It's like because it just cuts to black, and the song is playing, and the lyrics all match up quite nicely. Um, I don't know. I guess it just comes down to a taste thing. But I can completely understand if somebody would be like, "Well, that's crap," because I'd like to. We don't get to see the villain get away with it. And I remember being at film festivals or after screenings, people would say, "But he does get killed, right? I just need to know that he's going to get killed." And I said, "Yeah, like you know, Carolyn's character says the last two people to ring the bell were found dead. You know,
Exactly. W
Ted's a
Pay attention to the movie.
yeah, yeah, it's all there. Watch it again. Yeah, I mean, I think there's something funny about that kind of open-ended, open-ended, but still hopeful. Never to be too bleak. Because I know I've said this before. Like there's been some really brilliant horror films like where I'll I'll get to the end and go like, "Oh, it's an amazing film, but I'll never come back to watch this. Like, this has just kind of ruined my day." And not just horror films. I mean, there's some very well made films just in general. You go like, it's excellent, but it's like
I can't
it's
really
a
watch yeah.
maybe in 10 years time I'll if I'm in too good a mood I'll watch it again. But yeah,
Yeah. Today's just going way too well for me. I'm gonna go traumatize myself real
yeah.
quick.
Yeah, the world seems way too nice. Everybody's being very friendly. I need something to bring me back down to earth.
Just bring it back down for a bit, yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. So I guess again, jumping off of like split horror, fans, there's been a lot of discourse over the last God, I think like 10 years now that horror, like this whole like grief and trauma trope within
mhm,
the genre is just like it's overdone or
yeah,
whatever. But like in my opinion, and I think I recently heard you talk about something similar to this, but to me, adding in, grief, trauma, and in this instance, in my opinion, Hokum, there is grief and trauma for sure. I get what people are saying, but it was more guilt, like
mm,
with Ohm and Mal and Jerry, like they all shared, in their different way, this like guilt.
yeah.
Can you talk about why it's important to like build characters instead of, slasher films is they're just teenagers that just get killed and you're
Yeah.
root for the bad guy and things, but to me, like, this grief, trauma, guilt thing, it adds so much to the characters, and you spend a lot of time like, I always use the term, like, McCarthy's films are such slow burns,
Mm,
but I appreciate that because you really build out the characters, and when things happen to him, it means something. Um, so can you talk about, like, the importance to you of, like, why adding that stuff to your characters and ultimately why maybe grief, trauma, and guilt, like, makes for a good horror?
it is a tricky one because I was aware that people were getting a little tired of like, okay, here we go again. It's more
Yeah.
trauma porn, kind of like just this character carrying around all this baggage. So I mean, I was nervous about it, but at the same time, uh, it's just the story I wanted to tell. It's like it kind of is what it is, you know. It's like it's like, well, this is something that I know, but it's been done a lot, and then people start going, oh, it's like elevated horror, which I really hate. It's like they've been making as if suddenly that there's like horror is now smart. It's like it's go back to Don't Look Now, or go back to Romero's first uh,
Yeah.
Night of the Dead. I mean, like it's always there's always been interesting characters and stories as opposed to just scares. Um, I think just having the characters be a little bit more would hopefully make the film scarier. Because you'd be like going, even if it's a bad guy, even if it's like a villain that's you don't like, but I think as long as you're engaged with him or you find him interesting, it's like going, okay, I really want this person to get to the end of it. So now I just feel like it makes the film a lot scarier. Um, I think of something like Silence of the Lambs, where the first time you see that, you're so terrified for for Clarice, just so for Jodie Foster's character, because she's she's surrounded by these absolute like monsters. There's just that fear in them. Like when you watch that film, and the first time you see that film at the end, it's like it's terrifying. But I think that's because you've gotten to know her character and you're so
Yeah.
frightened for her and you want her to escape. Whereas if you just had sent five, interchangeable teenagers into Buffalo Bill basement, it's like, and we don't know anything about them. It's like, oh, who gives a shit, you know?
Yeah. No one cares.
Is
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody cares. I'm just looking forward to watching them get killed one by one. That's going to be that's going to be the fun here. But I just think if you just connect with the characters a little bit more, I think it's scarier, And Adam talked about this a little bit too. He was saying that what he liked about the script when he first read it was that it wasn't just like a scary movie. It was like he felt that it was a good movie first because it had all this, Jerry, Adam's Ohm's interaction with everybody in the film. He's kind of telling a lot about his character, and you get to see what all these people are like, and Jerry's backstory, and how David Wilmot played him, and I see, you know, uh, the reaction of what happens to David Wilmot's character at the end of the film. It gets such every time I've watched it without fail, it gets such a reaction. Um, like it's such a shock for people that I don't know, would that happen, if that character wasn't somewhat developed. And of course, that's down to how David played him too. I mean, David's
Yeah.
just a really terrific actor that it's kind of hard not to connect with him.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just there's there's a there's a piece of me I get being like, "Oh, here we go," like you said,
Yeah.
like, "Here we go again, grief trauma," but there's a part of me that feels like some kind of audiences, like, they don't wanna think about their own, and so they're like, "Don't
Mm,
make me sit here and think about my own that I'm carrying," like, people just wanna shove it down and forget about it, and they wanna go, which I completely understand, but there's a piece of these films that, like, when I watch a movie that is, grief, trauma, guilt based, it's a way to like process like your own
yeah.
as well, which I like having that safe space and being able to do that within a film. So I, for one, appreciate it. And I thought it was great, especially on a second watch. I don't know what it is because I've seen Hokum specifically twice. We saw it once at South by, the premiere. Then we all saw it again at Overlook. And the entire group that we went with on a second watch, we were all like, every little bit and piece just like came together. Like it was all there the first time, but a second watch, really knowing where it's going, you were able to attach and
Yeah.
view the characters in a different way. I don't know what it is about a second watch on this specific film, but everybody that's watched it twice, they're like, it's even better. And to me, being able to like see the guilt that each character has and then watching it a second time and seeing it's all laid there early on and seeing that process. I don't know what it is. The second watch for this movie just does wonders. Um,
Oh, well, that's great. That's great to hear. Thank you. Yeah. I
very
mean,
rewatchable in my in
excellent.
my opinion. So speaking, we're talking about Hokum. I have to bring this up. We had a great laugh in our horror chat the other day. So when we got out of South by, we were like doing our initial like reactions and letterbox reviews and shit. Like everybody was like, "Dude, the Rabbit Man is so fucking scary." And then like 2 days ago, I texted going, "Hey guys, I just found out it's not a rabbit man. It's Jack the donkey." Um, we were like, "Wait, what do you mean it's not a rabbit?" Because like, obviously rabbits show up, very
Yeah.
iconic in your films. So we had a great laugh about that. So I wanted to ask, one, have you just been like screaming inside watching all these people say how creepy the rabbit man is, and you're like, it's not a fucking rabbit, it's a donkey?
No, it's I should have just made it a fucking rabbit. It's so obvious. I mean, there's rabbits all over the movie. So I mean, I once said somebody said to me, "Let's talk about Jack the Jackrabbit." I went, "See, that's brilliant. Like that's what I. Why didn't that's right there. That's so obvious. Where am I going with this jackass shit? It should be a rabbit."
So
Uh,
that
no, it's and also I sometimes you're talking sometimes a journalist or they'll only have or the interview could only be 5 minutes long.
yeah,
You know to go. I need to stop you right there. It's actually a jackass.
that's it. It's
Yeah,
actually
you
a
just
donkey.
go. Yeah, you don't want to be correcting people when time is limited, and it doesn't even matter. Um, it was very much just that idea of like the kind of just a jackass, just that kind of wild kind of character that I just thought Will would be really good at playing, and just the way we wanted to design him with the ears. I mean, it is very much a rabbit when I look at an hour like a hare, and even Fiona is dressed like a puka, like a big, also a big rabbit. So it kind of felt like, why was I trying to depart from this? You'll always have these things anyway. The film finishes, and you start other people watch it, and you go, yeah, I don't know, I have no idea why I did that. I wish there was some great explanation for it, but it just felt like.
That was my next that was my next thing because like I was like, oh, it's a donkey. Okay, cool. So I started looking into like, you know, how the donkey is like perceived in like folklore and like there's like, the donkey can represent like, finding joy in small victories or trusting that like this challenging path that you're on it leads to growth and fulfillment and carrying burdens with with no with no complaints. I'm like, that kind of matches up with the journey of home. But I was like, so I wonder, was there an intention of making Jack a donkey versus a rabbit? Because yeah, I agree. Like the rabbit's right there, but it just felt very
Yeah.
intentional. But you're just like, nah. I just wanted to go with it. He's creepy, so it's all good.
Yeah, but I like your take on it there. It's much smarter than mine. I'm gonna steal that if everybody ever asks me again. "Oh,
You
well, here's
should
what I was
steal
thinking."
that and use it.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to give me credit. No,
I will. I give you full credit.
I was reading about that. I was like, that actually makes so much sense. I'm like, I didn't really make that connection, but
Mm.
is what it is. Sounds good. No, we had a great laugh about it. So when I told everybody that I was talking with you, they're like, please ask him if he's just been like at home screaming at us, being like, "The creepy rabbit man." I was like, "Oh, I'm bringing it up."
Yeah, it'll just be one of those things, yeah, the creepy rabbit man. It's like, look, if people are finding him scary and
Oh,
they're getting a kick out of it, I'm on board. It can be whatever it wants to be.
oh yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Um, so all of your films, I touched on this early on, but like every single one of your films just have so much atmosphere and tension and dread, and that specifically is like the kind of horror that really just gets under my skin. And
Mm,
you seem to do it so effortlessly. I don't know if like you are aware of that, but just like it just seems just really easy for you. Which I've worked on some short films and things with my roommate, and it's not that easy. So,
mm.
um, where do you think where does the bulk of that come from? Is it like the script? Is it the edit? Is it on set? Um, and like a lot of your scares as well, um, are all those like pre-built, or is
Mm.
there ever like a moment when you're on set and you're like, you see an opportunity and you're like, hey, let me cook?
It's a mix. So we'll say like I would write the script and then I think it's usually I'd write the script. y- y- Producers come on board, you do a little bit of development, you keep picking at it. Sometimes it's like, let's get, it's been a few pages without a scare. Is there an opportunity here where we can have a little bit of tension? Because by the time I send out the script, I've probably been writing it for 2 years or so, and then it's great to get other eyes on it. Um, I then start storyboarding it. So I would storyboard everything. I mean, my drawings aren't great, but like it just tells me if I put the camera here and it's a wide shot or close up or we're moving a little bit, I can kind of feel the tension starting to build there. So, you definitely have the initial ideas in the script. And my scripts are very bare. I try to have as very little description of them as possible, which I think is another thing that would really help people get their scripts read by producers and production companies. Because if you open up the script and I'm sent stuff to read, and you open up and it's just a wall of text. It's like, well, it's not a novel. It's like a novel. You want all that prose and you want it to be as dense as possible. Whereas with script, you just want almost like bullet points, like really, really bare. So I would storyboard everything, and I would kind of, I would just watch it and try to, put on, try to get a sense of what this is going to be like. You'd have music playing, try to really watch the movie in your head and go, yeah, this would be a pretty creepy sequence. Um, and really, the storyboards for me is just so when I get onto when I get onto set on the day, I don't, just in case my mind goes blank and I have no ideas. It's like, well, I know these storyboards worked, and I know if we shoot this will cut together, and we'll make our day. We won't have to be coming back for pickups or reshoots or anything like this. But then it's just trying to stay open. So then that's very much like working with the actors, working with the camera department, production design could have put in something really cool that you didn't notice. It's like, oh shit, like there's a really cool carving there in the wall. Let's grab that. Um, um, and it's just staying open. There can certainly be stuff that suddenly feels creepier on the day than what you planned, or something's missing. But yeah, I think that's kind of the bottom line, is to have a plan but stay open. And then certainly when you get into the edit, like I've worked on two films now with Brian, my editor, and it's just us picking it. We're both huge horror fans. You're like, we were living together when we are making Oddity and Hokum, so like it's just you're kind of living in the film for months. You're going like, this part isn't working. And what is it? It's not the performance and it's not the lighting. And it's just something's off about it. And sometimes it can be reversing it, like swapping shots. It can be, taking a shot out of it. Sometimes it can be frames. It's like everything's working, but there's like, you just suddenly you'll take out 2 frames and now it works. And it's the most bizarre thing. It's like going, no idea why that is. Now it's just a gut feeling
Yeah.
that it's correct now, or there'll be times where I'll come in and maybe go like, okay, let's pick it. And Brian will be like, I came in early and we'd meet at the where we'd be editing. And like I tried something, take a look at this. And he's after swapping a shot or doing something. I'm like, what have you done? It's working now. What's changed? And he'd
What
be
was
like,
it? Yeah.
I just took out like a second from the I still got a second from the shot, from 2 shots back. It's like going, "Bizarre. Okay, well, now it's working." Or sometimes it can be sound design or score or whatever it is. It's a million things, but it's always kind of following your gut and going, "I think it's working now." I remember, and when I'm saying about staying open too, I remember for that closing shot of Oddity, um, that originally finished with Gwillem Lee, who played Ted. He finishes ringing the bell. There's no demonic bellboy coming from him. He thinks, okay, everything's cool. So he stands up. So the camera stands up with him and he turns and the bellboy is like here. So it's very much the closing shot was like this, almost like the back of Gwillem's head. So kind of Gwillem's face and then kind of turning and as the camera moves, we're met with this real jump scare. And I was like going, yeah. So we shot that and it was like, okay. And we were gonna we had 1 or 2 last shots to get, and it was just between takes. I was at the back of the room, and I was talking to Cullum, the cinematographer, and Gwillem was just sitting where he is in the movie, just he was sitting at the end of the table. Gwillem's lovely, very chilled out guy. He was sitting there just kind of relaxing, and people were pottering about, getting ready for the next shot. And Shane, who played the bellboy, was standing alongside him. And Shane had to stay very still because he had these big, thick contact lenses in his eyes, so he couldn't see anything. So we didn't want him, it was busy around him to keep thought, okay, best thing I'll do is I'll hang out here while people are working around me. And I was just looking going like, there's something really funny about that. Gwillem
Course,
sitting
yeah,
there
yeah.
looking very relaxed. And Shane is there as a bell. I said, like, we should get that. It was like, let's get that shot. And I went over and I just said to him, I said, like, I don't know, I got a weird gut feeling that there's something kind of funny about this, that you look so relaxed and you look so kind of scary. Let's just grab it and we'll have it in our back pocket and we'll see what happens. Then, of course, that's the closing shot of the film.
Love that.
The same thing with Jack. That shot of that has been used so much in the marketing, where Jack is watching Will, who plays Albie the bellboy, also plays uh, Jack, and he's watching Adam sleep. And again, we had just shot his whole monologue on the TV, and I was thinking, well, we never see you in the flesh. I kind of feel like you need to step off the screen and you need to be in the room, even though it mightn't make sense in the story. But let's get that. So I think we'd like 10 minutes till our day was done. So it's like, okay, everybody, just last minute ideas. If we can just try to grab that, I think it'll be worth having it. And again,
It's
it becomes a really nice little scare in the film. Then
it's
so
been used, yeah, that's love that. That's I was gonna get into, which you kinda already answered, like, me being I spent 15 years designing movie posters and, T-shirts for musicians, and sometimes you just, like, part of being a creative is just trusting the process, and, like, a lot of times, like, you're halfway through something and you're just like, is this gonna work? I don't know, and there's a moment where everything just kinda clicks, it comes together, and you're like, "Oh, I planned that the entire time." Um, so yeah, no, that's super cool to hear because like I said earlier, like, I think that ending shot of Oddity is great. So to know that now that you're just like, "Oh, this just happened to be a happy accident," kind of
yeah,
vibe. Love that. Love that. Specifically with Holcomb, I know it's out, so I don't wanna, like but, like, still kinda go not too into, like, spoilers, but, like, the bookends of Hokum is very much through the mindset of home, and, my buddy Peyton asked me to ask you this. He's curious if because you have, like, the beginning of the movie and the end and how, Ohm's mindset has changed. He's, like, went through a
yeah.
lot of things and he learned a lot. Was there anything that you yourself, when you were done with Hokum, that like you whether in the writing process or making the film that you learned about yourself that you're gonna carry on with like your next film or just in life in general?
Yeah, I think every film you make, 'cause, I mean, I've been working on this since, I mean, it's probably been working on this in terms of pre-production, all that since probably like October 2024, I guess. So yeah, but then before that, the script just took forever to write. I could not get that script to work. And I think one of the reasons for that is because that original script was a lot bleak. It was very bleak and it was heavy. It had a much darker ending. Adam's character doesn't he doesn't escape the basement at the end. So it kind of finishes with him just typing. David Wilmot's character Jerry wasn't in the movie. It was just different. It was just a very different film. So I suppose,
Yeah.
and I was pushing it. I mean, I think the reason it took so long to get that script to click for me was because I liked the idea of making something bleak and heavy and really scary, and then it just kind of got to a point where I was going, I don't know, I don't know why I was trying to do that. I was like going, well, again, I like the idea of somebody coming back to rewatch the film because it did scare them, but they kind of found it just entertaining as well. So. Um, Apart from just kind of what you learn on set, just spending time with people and getting to know people more. And I've been lucky; I've worked with the same crew twice now, and you know, um, starting to make a lot of friends there, which is great. You try to be more positive, I guess, would be something that I've definitely got from Hokum because I'm writing two other scripts now at the moment, and I can feel that kind of they can feel a little bit more positivity come into them, but it's great because that means there's also there's heavier, there's more of a darkness to them as well. It's like, well, I know that
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be so light that I can actually kind of, I can push things a little bit further as long as I can manage to, to pull up from that again. You can have things get so much worse in that third act, but if you can find a way to believably turn it around and have it feel like the happy ending is earned, then then I think it'll work, and that's a major one I've that I've learned.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I feel like any sort of creative process, you can take something from it
Yeah.
and just, take that and move on to the next one. I love that. Speaking of the ending of Hokum, it was clear to me that it was there's been a lot of, like, discourse and debate online, whether the events actually happened, if they did not happen. It seemed very intentional to me that, like, you kinda left it up for that, but I also think, like, there is a correct answer.
Mm.
Little things throughout the film that kinda hint, what the answer actually is. Do you enjoy reading the conversations, whether it's real? Because I've seen some people be like, "No, you're wrong, like, none of this
Mm.
happened." Yeah, it just a lot of discourse. Do you, like, read those things? If you, like, do you enjoy seeing those conversations?
I really try not to read it. I mean, I think when the film initially comes out, you read a little bit about it and you just go, okay, I think people like the movie. That's great. I can see some people really don't like it. All right, that's you do your best for these things. Um, and then I kind of just try to bail out of it. But I have seen a little bit because I guess I was curious how that would go down. That ending that he had something in his system that maybe he was hallucinating or some of these things. But for me, I like to. I mean, again, it's kind of open to interpretation, but I like to think it is. I like to think everything happens, and I think then the stuff that that he's tripping, where he's really seeing stuff that isn't there. I kind of think there's some the way we did is well, the way it's kind of structured. If you look at the reflection of his glasses, and it's kind of like what's he's seeing something, so it's his POV shot. Then you turn around, it's like a shot reverse shot. So when we see what he's looking at, it's one thing. When you see what you look at him, and if you're looking at the reflection of his glasses, it's like, okay, it's a little bit of it's kind of for me, it's pretty obvious, and it's very intentional. It's like
Yeah.
just look at his glasses,
Yeah,
you'll
that's
see.
that's what I'm saying. There is very intentional things when I was watching, specifically again, the second watch, like, which allows you to you already kinda know, like, the major beats. So, like,
Yeah.
I was walking into, like, I know what's gonna happen, so, like, paying attention to these smaller details.
Mm.
So, I walked out thinking, "Nah, everything happened." So good to know that we're on the same page.
Yeah. There you go.
So I've got one more question for you, then I'll let you go. So you've already spoken about I've read in like different articles and things, you've already spoken a little bit about like what's next for you. And like I was sad to hear maybe like your last like out and out horror. For listeners that haven't heard that news, is there what would you like or what can you share about like what you're working on next? And if the next one after that's not gonna be horror, like what are you interested in, a different genre wise?
It's funny because I have seen, yeah, I have seen, I was sent the article about that where I said, "Oh yeah, the next thing I want to do is this haunted house movie." But then I mean, they're all kind of haunted house movies. So this is a haunted
100%.
hotel,
That's what I was
Alley's
telling
haunted,
my friend,
Gallagher's haunted.
I was telling
So
my
it's like,
friend Gigi because we love that, like,
uh,
your, like, haunted house, spooky house vibes, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, dude, he's making the ultimate one. It's locked in."
Yeah, I guess what I meant by that would be that, for me, a haunted house movie has to start in such a way, and I think all my films have begun like this, where somebody slowly starts to realize that there's something supernatural going on, and that's usually your haunted house movie. Somebody
Yeah.
arrives and things start to go bump in the night, and the dog is going crazy, and they follow that formula. But I like the idea of, well, what if you dropped into it in the middle of the story where it's like it's already happening? It's like I'd love to meet characters early in the film that are fully aware of all of these things. It's like they know all of these things exist, and they're actively trying to deal with it. And I thought, though, it will be an interesting place to start, because it's like, well, where the hell do we go from here? Because we're already there. So it's like, it should feel like there's nowhere to go now, because, we've been denied that first 20 minute, that first act in the movie where, you know, something's slowly going bump in the night. Or the family's slowly starting to realize, ooh, we're after buying this place and something's up. But like, what would it be like if you already hit the ground running and they're already dealing with something, you know, um, something kind of full on. And so yeah, it's very much that. I think a film I love is like the Frighteners. But, not many people talk about it, but I love Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. I like the fact that the characters in that, um, Michael J. Fox's character and his kind of surrounding team, that they're aware of us. It's like they know what's going on. They're already in this world. Ghostbusters. It's like, these guys, they're already dealing with this shit. Like
Fully
they
aware, yeah.
believe in it, and the thing. So it's kind of like, or any film that deal with like psychic, psychics or mediums or this kind of thing. Like they're all, they're into it already. So I was just like the idea of like, well, what if you joined your character and they're already, that they're already into it. So that's kind of the plan with it. But yeah, and I think beyond that, then, like I'd always like to stay in horror, but I guess what I mean by moving away from some is kind of horror adjacent to be, like I would find there's a very different type of horror between, let's say, The Thing and uh maybe The Thing and like I don't know, The Conjuring. The
Oh, yeah.
Conjuring is very much like a haunted, it's very much that supernatural thing, whereas or very much kind of a supernatural story, whereas The Thing has, there's action in it, and it's kind of more of like they're trying to solve this mystery of like, well, what happened at the Norwegian camp, and kind of, it's not all, it's just that kind of suspense. So I mean, for me, it's a horror movie, but it's still kind of, it feels like it's science
Yeah.
fiction with horror. So it's that kind of thing that that kind of story that that I would, that I'm planning to do afterwards, if I'm lucky enough and everything works out. But it's that, that kind of
Well,
approach.
that's because 'cause I'm not gonna lie, when I read the article that was like, "Yeah, I think he's done," I was like, "Are you shitting me, dude?" Like like, when
No, no,
I
no. I've
I'm not joking, like, when it comes, like, when I didn't bring this up in my intro, which I should have, but, like, um, when people talk about, like, top 5 horror directors working now, and I do not see your name get brought up, I'm like, "We're gonna fight." Like, so, like, the fight like, the fact that I was reading the article, like, "Yeah, he's got one more in his tank, and then he's moving on." I'm like, "Don't do this." Don't break my heart like this, Damien. Please don't do that to me. Uh,
I'm, I want to make the ultimate romantic comedy. Then, yeah. It's like, I've done enough horror. It's got to be romantic. I want to remake Sense and
uh,
Sensibility.
that's too funny. Well, um, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I really appreciate you sitting down and chatting with me today. Is Like, like I said, I've seen Hokum twice. If you anybody out there listen, it's gonna be probably in my top 5 of the year. I loved it. If anybody listening hasn't gone and seen it yet, definitely go check out Hokum. Is there anything else that you wanna plug while you're on the podcast?
No, that's it. Just to say thanks for thanks for talking with me and for for talking so highly of the movie and going to see it twice. I really do appreciate it, and like it's been great to see people go out and enjoy it. And yeah, it's very rewarding. Because I mean, you could work just many people work just as hard on a movie, and it never finds an audience, or people just don't get out to see it. But yeah, I'm very grateful that people are enjoying it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I again, really appreciate you hopping on and chatting with me today. So if you haven't seen Hokum, go check it out, and, we'll be looking forward to all the horror movies and scares that you provide us, down the road. I cannot wait. So, thanks again for chatting, and, can't wait to be scared in a theater, 2 or 3 years for your next one, maybe, perchance?
All going well, we'll shoot next year or so, but we'll see. I could probably do it
Hell
next.
yeah,
I
awesome.
think even talking to you, I think I could feel the jet lag, but yeah,
Yeah,
but
good to
yeah.
I just got back from the UK and Scotland, and, like, it's the jet lag is terrible, so
Oh yeah,
I get
yeah,
that, so alright, well, it was great chatting with you. Thank you so much, Damien, and we'll chat again soon.
absolutely. Thanks a lot. All right, talk soon.
Wow, so I think that went okay. I don't know. It felt good. I know, like, the more and more I do this kind of thing, it's gonna be more natural and, like, it's gonna flow maybe a little bit better and things. I was so nervous. I was so nervous. I don't know if you could tell. I can tell, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it went pretty good. Let me know what you guys thought. Damien is such a chill guy, so cool, down to earth. Just I really enjoyed that conversation. I hope you guys did as well. And again, like I said, next week I will totally plan on, telling you all about my Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 3 experience. What a hell of a time, forever unforgettable week that was. The experience was just insane. But we'll talk about that next week. Until then, thank you guys for checking. But But until next week, if you haven't given the podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to, please, please do so. That helps me so much. Just push the podcast out into the algorithm and get more people listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm on all of them. Every single one, especially if you want daily horror content. I post on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram pretty much every fucking day. We're out here grinding, brother. But again, thank you so much for all your support, all your love. Thank you for tuning in every week on this podcast. I love you guys so much. I can't wait to tell you all about Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 3 next week. But until then, watch something spooky this week.